shortly. All right, we got the recording going. So, guys and ladies, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Again, we have another weekly Cash Flow Empire Tuesday podcast, a live podcast. And tonight we have another special guest. Actually, I say even more special just because of the connection that Elijah and one of our partners has. So I'll do a quick little intro. But before we kick that over, I do the little intro. We have Willie as co-host. If you want to jump off mute and say hi.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining our call tonight.
Awesome. So tonight's special guest is Elijah. So one of our partners, Frank, introduced us to Elijah, and we asked him to jump on the podcast here, right? So he began his journey as an employee for a large REIT. During this time, Elijah actually developed a strong foundation in financial modeling, playing a huge role in $4 billion, that's with the B, dollars worth of transaction volume. So with that, short intro, I know you have a vast amount of experience and so much that you want to share with us, Elijah. If you want to, share your journey, where you started, where you are now.
For sure. Thanks so much for having me on. And everybody, it's great to meet you. I don't think I see any familiar faces here, so it's really a pleasure to see you guys here and to hopefully share something of value that you might take away from it. So I'll just start back 8 years ago with the beginning of my story. It started off, I was still in college, and I fell down a YouTube rabbit hole. I was watching a ton of videos and realized that I just really wanted to buy a rental property because I thought that was probably the best way to get wealthy and to build a legacy and cash flow and have freedom. And well, it's been 8 years and I'm still working 100-hour work weeks. So if that gives you any indication, but I did have, some success along the way that I'll tell you about. And but I started off deciding after watching these YouTube videos that I was going to essentially just buy a property. I was going to go buy a single family house. I was not going to, spend years learning about it before I jumped in. I just jumped right in, took action. But I didn't have any money. I didn't have any credit. I was still a college student. I had maybe 10 grand saved up, and that was it. And that was because I joined the ROTC program for the Army. They gave me a full tuition scholarship for school and gave me stipends as well. So I was like saving all that money and working 3 part-time jobs while a student and saving that money. But it wasn't enough to buy a property. So I actually gave my cousin and my best friend a phone call and told them to watch all these YouTube videos. I sent them each like 30 videos. I was like, when you're done with these videos, give me a call. And they knew what I was going to ask as soon as they finished those videos. So I pitched them on going in with me on a shitty little $150,000 single family house in Orlando, Florida. And somehow we scraped together the $40,000 that we needed because my cousin had some money and my friend had some money. They co-signed the mortgage. We got approved, and that was our first rental property. We ended up doing 3 more of those before I really got a job in the space. So I found a job out of school at a huge real estate investment company. That's where I did the helped with the $4 billion of transaction volume, and I spent 4 years there. But on the side, I was growing my portfolio, getting into small multifamily deals, partnering on deals, taking down deals, like working during the day and at night and on weekends, essentially to build the portfolio, raising money from friends, family, coworkers, word of mouth, just anyone I could. I would literally walk around on the floor at my job with a pitch deck and try to get my coworkers to invest $5,000 into my deals. And that's really how I started with the capital raising. And then I realized that I could just partner with much larger businesses on their deals and essentially add my name to massive deals. And so kind of like how Willie and some of the others do it, where they're not the ones going out and finding the property. They're finding a company that found a property and then joining that company's management to essentially raise the money, do asset management, whatever roles. So I started doing a bunch of that. Essentially, we call it co-GP, or you're a co-manager on the deal, and did a whole bunch of those deals. After the 4 years working at the REIT, I had built up the portfolio large enough where I could really leave and just do it full time on my own, which was awesome. But I ended up selling almost the entire portfolio around 2020, right at the top of the market, which was great timing, and ended up reinvesting all that money into much larger deals where I was not the lead sponsor, the key manager on. And for those deals, I essentially just raised money for those deals, just like how Willie and Eddie and Frank do it. I set up my own LLC for raising money. I would raise a bunch of money within that business and then invest that money into the deals. And I still do that model today. I invest my own money, but then I also invest other people's money. I raise capital, and then I also organize large checks on a one-off basis for sponsors. So that's a little overview. I've got interest in about 2,500 rental units. Property values probably somewhere around $500 million at this point. I own a very small percentage of that myself, and looking to significantly grow the portfolio in the coming years.
Man, that's an awesome story. So I got a question for you. Was it easy raising money from your family and friends in the beginning, or was it took you a while to learn?
No, not at all. So the problem is in the beginning, you don't have a track record. So who's going to give you money because you've never done it before? The only people who are going to give you money are people who trust you when you don't have a track record. These are close friends and family members. Those are also the people who have seen you at your worst and know that you're a shitbag and that you shouldn't be trusted. So you got to really put together a list of every single person that you know, every friend and family member. You need to reach out to them, tell them what you're doing, and start the conversations early. You should not be going to these people like when you're desperate for the money. So, but it's very difficult to raise money with any group of people, definitely with friends and family. But that's really the only place where you can get money in the beginning.
So after you raise, some funds through family and friends, how did you find your first investors and getting into, outside of the single family a little bit into, some of the bigger properties?
So word of mouth. So I started with friends and family, my best friend and my cousin. I then started approaching coworkers while I was at work. And then that small group of people, like the 20 people or so, started bringing their friends in. So referring me to their friends who became like my first, non-friends family investors, just word of mouth. And what we call this in capital raising is like small retail relationships. And let me just dive real quick into like the progression of capital raising. You start with family and friends, close friends and family, and word of mouth. You then go into really small retail. And that's like, these are like small checks of people who are, not probably they don't do this a lot. You're just going and convincing, a word of mouth referral to invest $20,000. And then you get into, more of like streamlined retail. These are like people you'd find on LinkedIn, or like, a referral to someone who's actually invested before, knows what they're doing, knows what to ask. Maybe they're investing, between $25,000 and $100,000. And then you get into high net worth. These are people who are investing, between 100 and 500,000. Their net worth is probably somewhere around, 10 million or so. And then you get ultra high net worth. These are like the $100 million people. They're writing much larger checks, like 500,000 up to like 5 million even. And from there, you go to family offices. Family offices will write checks anywhere from, 5 million to 100 million, depending on the size. And then if if you're lucky enough, which 99% of people never actually get to this point, you can go and raise money from institutions like pension funds and hedge funds and banks and much larger organizations. But personally, I'm still in the friends, family, and retail crowd. Like, I haven't even broken into family office yet because I'm now just at the point where I have enough track record to get family offices into my deals. And I've been doing this for 8 years. I've done, 26 deals. I've got all these properties, and I'm only now just getting to the point where I can ask family offices for money.
So you mentioned LinkedIn, right? Are you using that platform to raise capital right now?
Yes, LinkedIn is my only and number one source of raising capital.
And how are you using it to raise capital? Are you using the sales navigator side or just posting?
So I'd say 99% of the leads just come from me posting 3 to 4 times per week for like multiple years straight and just being consistent with it and continually improving the posts. And then maybe 1% comes from like outreach on Sales Navigator. I'm actually probably going to shut down my Sales Navigator. My virtual assistant handles all that, but it's really just not generating leads.
I actually saw one of your posts. I'm not sure how long ago this was, but you shared insights into the family office that you went into a meeting. They asked you a bunch of questions, and you came out with them not investing, but you came out with a bunch of insights. Can you kind of tell us like what what your mentality was in that meeting and then thereafter?
Oh, you guys are gonna like this story. Okay. So I was going after like my first kind of like big deal as like a lead sponsor, lead GP. It was like a 23 unit apartment building in Phoenix, Arizona. And I was gonna take the whole thing down myself. I needed like $4 million or so in equity to make the thing happen. And so I had put together a deck, and I was literally living in a van at that time. I lived in a Mercedes Sprinter van for a year. My girlfriend and I built the whole thing out and lived in it. And we drove to Phoenix, Arizona to do the due diligence on the property and to try to raise some money. And so I, was literally calling every single person on my list because I really, really needed that to raise that money. And I got wind of this family office investor through a mutual friend that was, in the area. And so I somehow set up a call. So I drove the van to his office's parking lot. He owned the whole building of the office. And I slept in the parking lot the night before the meeting with him. And then I went in with my pitch deck that I printed out, wearing a nice suit. Like, I literally put a suit on in the van. It was really funny. And then I went in and I walked in, and there's this like 4 foot tall dude wearing like a really fancy suit and like alligator skin shoes. And and it was him. It was him. It was his family office. He owned the whole building. He owned half the town. And he was like really, really cool dude, like super smart. He was actually an attorney, but he inherited, the whole portfolio. And so, just started managing the family office portfolio. Anyway, I pitched the deal to him at his desk, and he tore it up. I got absolutely roasted. He went through every single page of it and like marked it up and was like, "This is not conservative. This is bad. This is bad. You're gonna get screwed here." Like, lots of great advice. And so I after the meeting, I showed him the van, and he actually destroyed his shoes on the pavement. So but got a lot of insights out of it. Yeah.
Man, just I know Willie has a question, but I just wanted to share the level of commitment. You're living out of a van, you drive it, and you're there
Yeah.
probably like 18 hours before your meeting, right? Like the night before. Uh, and then you came out of it. The thing I took away from your post was not that you didn't get it, but the insights, and that was what was valuable. So heading into
Yeah.
the next one, now you know what to expect.
We love it
So
when they say no, because it gives us a chance to ask why. And then we can, come back to them next time, answering their actual questions that they want and presenting them something we know they're going to like.
that's awesome thinking. So you got to fail fast, right?
That's right.
So Elijah, are you doing now? Are you focused on taking deals, managers themselves, or partnering up with other people?
No, so one thing about like the 7 to 8 years that I've had of being an active owner operator with these deals, I really hate it. I don't like it. It is a full-time job. For anyone considering like being an active investor, just know that it's a real job. It's brutal sometimes. Sometimes it's better to just be a passive investor. Um, so I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not actively buying properties. What I'm doing now, because I'm a deal flow guy, is I get sent like 50 deals a month from other people who are trying to raise money for their deals. And they'll send them to me and they'll say, hey, can you invest money in this deal, or can you connect me with someone who will? And so that's really what my whole business is now. It's either me writing checks with my money and other people's money, or me connecting someone who's got money to the deal. That's what I do now. I don't actively operate things. I just allocate capital now.
And how do you vet the people that you want to partner up with? Like, what is
A great question, and it's what like all of my LinkedIn content's about. It's a process that starts with the actual operator. So it's like if you're gonna get into bed with someone who's running a deal, you need to make sure that they're competent enough and experienced enough to do it. And the best way to know that is if they've done it a bunch of times before.
how many
So
how many
we
deals
call this
have
track record. Ask them for their track record. If they've been around for 5, 10 years and have 20 deals under their belt, like they're probably going to be able to do it again. And so that's like the first thing we care about. We'll have meetings with the sponsor. We'll understand their strategy, their track record, how their performance compares with the projections that they made. That's like the big overall thing. That's 80% of our decision. And then once we know which sponsors we want to see deals from, we'll then ask them to start sending us deals. And they'll start sending us deals, and then we'll go through our like, is this deal risky type of analysis, where it's like, okay, how much debt are they putting on the property? What's the interest rate? Is the cash flow enough to pay that mortgage every month and still have a bunch left over for distributions to the investors with a safe margin? That's like really what we care about. Are they paying a good purchase price for the property? Are they projecting a reasonable exit or a sale price for the property? And with a conservative sale price, do the returns still make sense? So those are really the questions we start asking, once we get into the deal. But it starts with the sponsor.
So digging into the deal, are there specific markets that you look for, or it just the numbers need to make sense? Can you tell us a little bit of kind of your buy box? What's a hard no, or what's something that will prompt you to say, send us more deals?
Sure. And so there's two different buy boxes. One is for deals that I'm looking to invest in and do like a fund of funds type thing, where like I'm raising capital for the deal. And then there's a separate buy box, which is just like relationships, where I'll just connect them with someone who's got money. And so let me talk about the buy box for my own deals that I like. I'm really looking at multifamily, only multifamily. I stick to that. That's it. In the Sun Belt region. I try to stay with like politically landlord friendly states. Typically, these are conservative states, and I'm really looking for a sponsor that has experience. So like 5 full cycle deals. I want to make sure that debt service coverage ratio on that property is at least like a 1.25 when they buy it. I want to make sure that that loan that they're putting on the property is at a low enough interest rate that it will cash flow. And I want to make sure that that loan is a long enough time period where they're not going to be caught with their pants down after 3 years because they got a bridge loan and now they can't refinance. So that's kind of like the buy box there. It's sponsor has experience, then what's like the debt service coverage ratio, what's the cash flow yield in the first year. Those are really like the questions I'm looking for. But 1980s and newer is my vintage, so I don't really want to look at buildings that are older than 1980. And then there's the buy box for everyone else, for the relationships, and that's more broad. That's the whole country, multifamily, and potentially some other asset classes as well, depending on who wants what. Like I've got a guy who likes retail deals, but I'll mostly keep it to multifamily, uh, all vintages, all locations in the US, all sizes, all strategies, acquisition, recapitalization. Typically, we're staying away from development deals. It's really hard to raise money for ground up construction right now. So that's something we don't really do.
So we have a question in the chat. It says, speaking about the time when you lived in a van, can you talk about how you are able to gain your investors' trust when you have nothing at hand? And then can you
Yeah.
also talk about the importance of building a brand with this question?
Yeah, like 99% of my investors, I don't think I've like ever met. So, and now when people invest in my deals, I look at the cap table and I don't even recognize half the names on it, which is crazy. Because I've got other people within my organization handling those calls. All the emails are automated. The portal is automated. Everything happens without, all I need to do is decide that I want to invest in that deal. I click a button and everybody else handles everything else, which is great. But when I don't, when I was in the van, I had Starlink satellite, so I'd be on my laptop, and I could do everything that I would do here from a beach in Mexico with no service. So it's the same thing. It's just you're not there to shake people's hand, but I'm never there to shake anyone's hand, so it doesn't really matter.
And then we have a follow-up question, and one of the questions that we had is, can you talk about how you were able to form your team and what is it that you look for partners?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've actually been burned with a few bad partnerships. And the thing about partnerships, you can do a ton of due diligence up front and feel them out. You really won't know until you're like a year or two in, if they're going to be a shitty partner. So it's kind of hard to gauge. But I've been in some sticky situations. One was a partnership where the dude was like red flag city, like doing all kinds of like potential like securities violations and stuff. And he was just bad news bears. So I got out of that one by essentially I told him I was going to report him to the SEC. And we came to some type of settlement agreement, and I walked away from the whole thing. Another time, I had to spend money to end the partnership. So it's you got to be really careful, but when you're trying to figure out the partners, rather than just getting like involved in like a long-term partnership from day one, start out with like a collaborative relationship where you guys are going to come in and like co-GP or JV together on deals, but you'll do it through your own individual entities or names. You're not actually like long-term partners in everything and anything. And once you've done 5 or 10 deals together, then it might make sense to like form an actual like entity together and have an operating agreement together. But that's introduces risk into the situation.
All right,
We have
and then another question here. Can you talk more about how you're able to operate without interacting much with investors? Was it handled by
Yeah.
your partners? Sounds like you have a team that handles that, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my system is like highly, highly automated. Reach out to me if you're interested because my partner Dave, so Dave owned half of GoldHawk Capital, and we recently split off a tech business kind of where Dave's in charge of it, but that business is just essentially setting up our entire automated system of capital raising for other people, and he charges money to do that. So reach out if you want that. But our whole thing is completely automated. So I start off with a lead magnet. I've got some kind of free product. My camera's going to die. If it dies, I'll keep talking while I switch the camera out. But essentially, I come up with some type of free product, something that's super valuable that people would actually pay money for. But instead of charging them for it, I'm going to offer it to them for free. I'm essentially going to, put it on my LinkedIn, make a post about it. It's going to be completely free. And all they have to give me is an email address. So I have a form and they give me their email address. And then that triggers a series of automations that educate them about me and my business. it'll of course send them their free product, but then it'll start sending them deals as the deals come out, and all the deals are automated too. So whenever there's a deal, the virtual assistant goes and plugs in all the information into the deal emails, and then hits play, and all the automations start running. And once those investors see the deals, there's a link in those emails to a portal, and the portal is all set up by the virtual assistant as well. So then they go to the portal and they start their commitment, and the whole process of reviewing the deal, signing documents, wiring funds, and then collecting distributions later, it's all done in the portal. It's all automated. I don't have to do anything.
So you just let this run. Okay, you have someone interested, they're gonna reach out to you, which is awesome. So that was Tram, who had all those great questions, and I just wanted to mention, it sounds like I'm sure you heard of this book, Buy Back Your Time, but it sounds like you have a team, everything is automated and it's running in the background. You focus on the high level items, on the things that you actually like investing your time into.
It's more than that. But yeah, so like I live in Hawaii and I can't manage buildings in Texas and Arizona when I live in Hawaii, but it's a lot more than that. So yeah, location freedom is great. It's really about maximizing how much money I'm making for the time that I spend doing it. So making relationships with capital providers and operators, and then essentially being a passive investor through a fund of funds model pays me the most for the amount of time I spend doing it. I'm arranging these deals and getting paid, a portion up front, a portion in the middle, and the portion in the back. But I'm only doing work up front, and I'm doing a very little amount of work up front because I've got now virtual assistants and a team that is doing that work for me. So I'm really not doing that much work, as opposed to if I go and buy a property in my hometown or whatever, and I'm the property manager and I'm the one finding the debt and I'm the one, dealing with the insurance and doing everything like that. All my time is gone. So the way I've structured my business is intentional, where I don't have to be anywhere or do anything. I can essentially just, have a deal done remotely and I get paid for it.
Awesome. Thank you for those insights.
Definitely.
Sure.
So, I did my homework for this call, right, on you. So, in one of the podcasts, you mentioned that for those that don't have partners, right, you mentioned that to contact the top firms, their investor relations, and see how they could add value. Can you talk a little bit more about that strategy?
Yeah. So the reason why you do this is because, well, first of all, you're new, you're getting started, and you don't want to screw up by getting in over your head on a deal and then not knowing what to do. So you join someone else's group for that experience to learn and get paid to learn, and essentially have someone there holding your hand and showing you the ropes. The other thing is you get to borrow their track record. You have no track record because you're new, but instead of just going to friends and family because they're the only ones who trust you, go borrow someone else's track record, partner with someone, take their track record and sell that. Because now you can go to anyone with money and say, take a look at the track record of this group. So like they've got 20 deals done. I don't have any deals done, but they've got 20 deals done. So trust them. So that's another reason why you do that. Mostly though, to lower the risk, because in the beginning, you might screw up, and there's a lower chance of you screwing up if you partner with someone who's got experience.
And where could people find these groups at? Like,
LinkedIn, anywhere really. It's once you get into like the multifamily syndication world, there's like hundreds and hundreds of them. They're all on LinkedIn. They're all, you see their ads all over Instagram and Facebook and everywhere. They're all over the place. Anyone who like watches Bigger Pockets, you can go to the Bigger Pockets website, and there's probably a whole forum for like multifamily syndication. They're everywhere.
So out of all the opportunities that you were a part of, which one is the one that kind of stands out the most to you, and for what reason?
So like which deal?
Yes.
Yeah. The first multifamily property that I bought, it was a sixplex in Orlando, Florida. And I was definitely like in over my head on this. I got really excited because I was gonna go buy multifamily. And so I just went and bought the first deal that like the broker showed me. And this was like C class 1950s product, like completely like flooded out with structural foundation issues, and like the whole thing needed to be gutted. And I was just like, great, this is what it means to be a multifamily investor. And I went through 4 property managers on that deal. Probably threatened to sue 3 of them. And it was brutal. We went through like 3 contractors. It was just like a really difficult project to get through, but somehow the market was on our side. We renovated all 6 units, raised the rents high enough where we essentially doubled the property value, and we listed it for sale. Fell out of contract 4 or 5 times because it was like C-class crappy property. And anytime they discover something during their due diligence, they ask for $100,000 discount on like a $600,000 property. So we finally got it sold and ended up 1031 exchanging with another entity that I sold a property with on over on somewhere else in Arizona. We took all that money and bought a bigger property, and that property was just as bad as of a problem. And totally didn't learn my lesson on the first one, and got myself into like a bigger crazy situation on the second one. Luckily, we were able to get the renovations done and raise the rents, and it was just a massive headache, but I pulled it off, and it looks like it's going to work out. But there was a time there where I borrowed a bridge loan. I got a bridge loan on that second deal with 18 months of term. The dude was supposed to give us 3 years, and then he reneged later. And like he came to us later, even though we had documents, and was like, "Yeah, I don't even care. I'll just sue you if you don't give me my money back. Like, and I'll just make your life miserable by suing you, even though like you'll probably win. It'll be 3 years later, and you'll be bankrupt." So I had to get him his money back. Essentially, it was like $8 million, and because he financed a whole portfolio of deals. But that was scary. I spent 10 months of 2023 figuring out how to refinance this property while it was in lease up mode. So we finally got it leased up, got it refinanced, and now it's stable.
Is that what caused you to kind of back out of operations? It was having to go from
Yes.
one property, getting traumatized a little.
Dude, every
For
day,
10
even
months.
I've got 3 properties left out of a portfolio. I'm still traumatized every day. It's always a shock, but never a surprise. It's always a shock, but never a surprise. Cause it's like I see something completely new every day, some new crazy story. Like I probably have like the craziest real estate PTSD ever. So yeah. And that's normal. Like talking to other owner operators, like if you've got, if you've done 25 deals, you've probably also seen it all. It's like, and that's the thing. I haven't seen it all. Every single day, there's something new. And I'm like, I could never have imagined in 1,000 years that this would happen. Like just the wildest things. Yeah.
What's something that stood out that you thought would never happen? Now that you mentioned that, I'm curious to hear what you're gonna say.
Like last week, like tenant number 1 punched tenant number 3 in the face. Like we had to go and figure out which one. I'm not even the property manager. I hired a property manager. We had to figure out which one to evict and which one could stay. So like we had to go through a whole process of obtaining the police reports, talking to the officer, figuring out. And then not only that, but it's not just about who committed the crime. It's about the politics of the building. So you got to figure out, if you kick one of those tenants out, will all the other tenants leave because they're pissed about the outcome of that altercation? So we ended up like
Like
having to,
having
oh, it's echoing. Someone's got their microphone on. We ended up having to, I think we ended up kicking out the person who like wasn't even at fault, just because the politics of the building meant that everybody would be happy and stay if we kicked that person out. It's like, that's just an example. It's like, you'd think it's so straightforward. It's just like, oh, like just go and tell the person who punched the person that they can't punch people. But it's not that simple. You have to like spend 5 or 6 hours dealing with it. I have a deal right now, really interesting situation. So I sometimes co-sign on other people's mortgages in exchange for a fee. Like, you have a 12plex and you want me to co-sign the mortgage so that you can get the loan from the bank. Cool. Like, pay me $25,000 and I'll sign it for you and you'll get the deal done. Anyway, I did that, but I have special clauses in these agreements that allow me to essentially take back control of the property if they screw up and default on the loan. And so in that situation, I have the right to sell the property. And so that happened on one of these deals that I was involved in. And so I'm going to sell the property because I get control of it now. And we've had it under contract and out of contract 4 different times in the last 2 weeks. Or it's like, someone will put the deal under contract, we'll get all excited, we'll tell everybody about it, we'll collect earnest money, they'll go do an inspection and then back out immediately, or they'll back out the day before the inspection or whatever. And it's just an emotional roller coaster. Every single thing that happens is an emotional roller coaster with this business, because you get really excited one day about something that's going to happen. That's great. And then the next day it's just all gone and off the table. We've been in a situation where we told investors multiple times that the deal was like selling, and then at the last second the buyer backed out and we had to tell them we're sorry, and they get pissed. We had situations where we sold a bunch of properties but had to use the proceeds to pay down loans on other properties, and so investors were stuck paying a massive amount of capital gains tax without any cash. So, just like all these little things that you would never even think about, that'll never come up in a mastermind course or anything like that. It just, you got to do deals to figure this stuff out and know what's happening.
So how do you stay grounded through just hearing the stories? It's you're taking me through the
Uh,
roller coaster of emotions here. How do you compose yourself? How do
I
you
don't know,
kind of
Eddie. I
stay
guess
intact?
I'm probably a psychopath.
Yeah, you have me fooled.
No, I have a great support system. My girlfriend, she takes care of me and deals with all the stuff. She cooks me dinner and takes care of the home and does everything, and um is a sounding board when I get off work. And I try to spend some time outside every day. We live near a park, and so, I try to, close the laptop and walk away from it all. But it's hard. Like, when you have the curse of the entrepreneur and like the hyperactive brain, you can't just like, you can't go to the beach. You can't go to the beach because all you're thinking about is doing deals, and like all the crap that's going wrong with all your deals. So it's tough. It's really tough to do. It's not for everybody. That's why I say, like, just be a passive investor if you can. If you have a W-2 job and you can make $200,000 a year, like, don't do this, It's like, figure out how to maximize your income or start a different side hustle, because the real estate operations game is tough.
So what do you do for fun to get away from this in Hawaii?
Yeah, well, first of all, I live in Hawaii. That's intentional. I can walk to the beach in 5 minutes. We've got hikes and everything, and go hang out with Frank Tashima. It's yeah, there's a lot of stuff to do here. Yesterday I played adult pickup soccer in the park. I play the drums, so I go to a local studio and practice for an hour.
We have someone here who Joshi mentioned. I wish someone would have told me that earlier on. And then
About the
Tiago,
how difficult it is to operate deals.
yeah, she's nodding her head yes.
Yeah.
And then we have Tiago, who's asking for your social media. Uh, if you can just share
Yeah,
where can they find it? We still have a couple questions, so
sure.
don't everyone please don't jump off yet. But if you can share your information.
I only do LinkedIn, really. It's linkedin.com/in/Elijah W. Brown. You can just look up Elijah Brown. I'll probably be the first one that shows up. Um, We've got a website, goldhawk.us. I've got a ton of resources for you guys. Is this crowd mostly like owner operators or capital raise? What do you guys do?
A little bit of everything is in here.
Okay, cool. I've got resources for everyone. If you're a limited partner and you're looking to passively invest in deals, I've got calculators like Excel calculators. I've got guides, ebooks, all kinds of stuff for you to learn how I look at deals and like how you should look at deals too. I've got resources for operators for like doing quick analysis on a deal or like stuff like that. I've got a list of red flags, all kinds of resources on the website. You just go to the resources tab.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of people go in there and start downloading your stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Feel free.
Now, another question, right? We're talking about real estate, obviously. We're talking about the ups and downs. We're talking about what you're looking for when you're vetting and you're buy boxing the different those streams of deals that you're getting. Where do you see multifamily in general in the next couple of years?
That's tough. Depends who you ask. If you're going to ask like the big wigs working at the large institutions, they think we're about to fall off a cliff into the biggest recession ever, and that, cap rates on multifamily will be at 8% in the next few years, and that interest rates are not going down ever. And then if you ask all the like the retail investors and people that, go to like these smaller retail conferences and syndication groups and stuff, they think that we've hit the bottom and that it's all upside from here. Interest rates are coming down, property values are going up, everything's going to be great. I think it's somewhere in the middle. Personally, I don't think interest rates are going down this year. I think I don't know how much they'll go up. I think they're going to remain somewhat flat, at least for the next year or so. I think that it is possible that property values will continue to decline just because of how many distressed and defaulted loans there are right now. It's still really, really hard for people to refinance, especially if you bought a deal in 2020 or 2021, and essentially the loan amount is now higher than the property value, which means it's underwater. And if the property's probably not cash flowing, and if you borrowed money with a short-term loan, you're screwed. So I think it's possible that we'll see more distress. But I don't think a ton more. You see transaction volume is still not back, but prices are not like trades are not really happening at lower or higher prices. They're relatively flat right now. So I think we're at a period right now where things will not get better, but they're not going to get significantly worse. I think they're going to probably remain where they are now or a little bit worse over the next year.
Yeah, I agree with you on the interest rates. I think they're here to stay for some time, and people just gotta get used to them.
Yeah. You got a few wars going on. War is highly inflationary. I mean, in the location of these wars. So like the Suez Canal is like pretty much closed. All those insurance companies don't want to insure boats that are going through there. The boats don't want to go through there. And when that happens, the price of goods gets way more expensive. And so I don't think we're done with inflation. I think inflation is going to keep going up. And then that's going to force the Fed to take more action and, definitely not raise interest rates. Definitely not lower interest rates. My bad. They might raise them. They might raise interest rates. We'll see.
So, what's next for Elijah Brown and GoldHawk Capital?
It's a good question. We're gonna keep. We get 50 deals a month usually. Operators send us deals. If you got a deal, send it to me to review. We choose one every other month or so, and we raise money for it and directly invest in the deal ourselves. Those checks are usually like $1 to $3 million, and my money is part of that. And then we also have like the brokerage service for much larger checks, like starting at $1 million. We connect like large capital sources with real estate deals that are seeking like joint venture partners and preferred equity and loans and stuff like that. So we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. Any of you guys who follow like Alex Hormozy, it's like you just got to do the repetitive, boring thing for like 5 years straight and just keep doing that and focus on what's working and be like super niche and focused on what you're doing.
That's awesome. It takes years to become an overnight success, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So any final words, Elijah, anything that you want to share with us, everyone here, maybe fun fact or something that we might not know about you?
Man, you guys kind of know everything at this point. Well, I'll give some advice. How about that? Like everybody through 2023 and through 2024 so far is struggling, especially with like raising money and getting deals done. So if you feel like that's happening to you and you're running into walls with like raising capital and stuff, that you're not alone. That's all of us. We're all having those problems, but you need to be doing what you can now to prepare yourself so that you can be the one to take advantage and capitalize once that tide shifts. So 2025, 2026, when investors are eager to get back in and when transaction volume has come back to normal, like you need to be in a position where you're an expert in your field. You know what to look for. You've got the network, the email list built and everything ready to go so that you can, essentially take advantage of all the opportunity. Like, don't be the guy who misses the bull run because you weren't prepared. Now's the time to prepare.
Awesome. Thank you so much for leaving us with the final advice here. Thank you guys for joining and for taking some time out of your Tuesday evening or afternoon, depending on where you are. So again, this is Elijah Brown. You can find him on LinkedIn, Elijah Brown, or head on over to his website, goldhawk.us, and download all those free resources for you guys. So with that being said, I'm going to stop the recording shortly, but just wanted to mention that if you had a couple extra minutes, Elijah and everyone else, we usually do some breakout rooms. And Luis, we got your question in here. We'll break out into breakout rooms. If you have some extra minutes, we'll all network a little bit, and then we can answer that question here. So let me stop recording.